Imagine gold that no one dares to steal. In the heart of a destitute city, under the gaze of 1,000 starving eyes, sits a chalice of pure gold. Anyone could drink from it, but no one dared to touch it. This is no fairy tale. This is Wallachia, a land where honesty was not a choice, but an instinct for survival. While the rest of the world drowned in chaos, here reigned order, terrifying, absolute. Vlad III did not just rule, he cauterized weakness with glowing iron. Forget the legends of fangs and capes. The real Dracula was a genius of terror who turned execution into a form of high political art. Today, we strip away the myth. You will see the man who halted the world's greatest empire with a forest of living bodies. Welcome to reality. The Dragon's Shadow, hostage of the Sultan. Vlad's story doesn't begin in the forests of Transylvania, but in the gilded cage of the Ottoman Empire. As a child, he and his brother were traded to the Sultan as political collateral. It was an era where loyalty was bought with the blood of sons. In Edirne, Vlad grew up in the shadow of the Janissaries, studying their tactics, their philosophy, and their scorched earth brutality. He watched the empire crush entire nations and learned one ultimate lesson: only those who are feared more than death have the right to live. It was there, in Turkish captivity, that his spine of iron was forged in hatred. He watched his father be betrayed and his brother blinded with glowing irons. When Vlad finally returned to his homeland, he wasn't just a prince, he was a perfected weapon. The blood of the Order of the Dragon ran through his veins, but Vlad decided that prayers were not enough. He needed blood. The Crimson Feast, the end of the boyars. Vlad's first enemy wasn't the Turks, it was the internal traitors, the boyars, who treated rulers like disposable pawns. They had murdered his father and brother, believing the new prince would be their puppet. They were wrong. On Easter Sunday, Vlad invited the entire nobility to a grand feast at his castle. The tables groaned under the weight of fine meats and flowing wine. The boyars relaxed, expecting favors, but at the height of the festivities, the guards sealed the exits. Vlad asked a single question: "How many princes have you seen in your lifetime?" Even the youngest had witnessed dozens of coups. Vlad's response was brief. The elders were immediately impaled in the courtyard. The younger men, along with their wives and children, were marched into the mountains to build the fortress of Ponari. They worked until their clothes rotted off their bodies and they collapsed into the abyss. The old elite was annihilated in a single night. Defying the Sultan, the forest of the impaled. The ultimate test came in 1462, when Sultan Mehmed II, the conqueror of Constantinople, marched a colossal army toward Wallachia. The Turks expected an easy victory, but they encountered a ghost. Vlad utilized scorched earth tactics, poisoned wells, burned fields, and ambushes in the deep woods. But the climax of this war was a psychological strike that stained history: the forest of the impaled. As the Ottoman army approached the capital, a sight appeared that froze the blood of even the most battle-hardened warriors. For nearly 2 miles, thousands of stakes stood high, bearing the bodies of Ottoman captives. The Sultan, a man who had seen thousands of deaths, was paralyzed. He remarked, "I cannot defeat a man who treats life in such a way." Despite his overwhelming numbers, Mehmed II ordered a retreat. It was the victory of pure terror over military might. The Night Attack, a leap into immortality. Vlad didn't just wait for the enemy, he went to them. The boldest episode of his career was the night attack at Targoviste. Disguised in Turkish garb and fluent in the enemy's tongue from his years of captivity, Vlad personally infiltrated the Ottoman camp to scout the path to the Sultan's tent. That night, his strike force tore into the heart of the enemy, sowing chaos and slaughter. His target was the head of Mehmed II. In the darkness, amidst the screams and burning tents, Vlad hacked his way toward the center of the empire. Though the Sultan narrowly escaped, that night changed the world's perception of Tepesh forever. He was no longer just a rebellious prince. He became a demon in the eyes of the East and a legend in the West. His guerrilla warfare was a masterclass for future generations, proof that the will of one man could defy the most powerful war machine of the age. Betrayal and the fall. Despite his military brilliance, Vlad was doomed. His absolute power and brutality birthed enemies both abroad and within. Neighboring rulers, including King Matthias Corvinus of Hungary, began to fear the dragon's rising influence. To justify their refusal to aid Vlad, the Hungarian chancery began circulating the first black legends of his insanity. Vlad was captured and spent 12 years in a dungeon. His image was systematically blackened in Europe's first printed pamphlets, transforming the defender of Christendom into a bloodthirsty psychopath. When he finally reclaimed his throne for the third time, he had almost no allies left. In 1476, he fell in battle against the Turks. Rumor has it, his own soldiers, in the fog of war, struck him in the back. Even in death, he was feared. His head was sent to the Sultan as a trophy, while his body was buried in secret to prevent it from becoming a symbol of resistance. Legacy: man or monster? Vlad Tepes fell on a snow-covered battlefield, yet his name, washed in both blood and ink, achieved a chilling immortality. Death was not his end, it was the beginning of a metamorphosis. Almost immediately after his passing, the first printing presses of Europe began churning out pamphlets where the prince's true biography dissolved into a grotesque anthology of horrors. Thus, from the ashes of history and the primal fears of his contemporaries, the foundation was laid for one of humanity's greatest myths, the legend of the vampire. But who was he really, once the theatrical cape of Dracula is stripped away? For Red Doctrine, the answer is devoid of mysticism, but filled with a brutal, piercing logic. Vlad was no fairy tale monster. He was a political surgeon who performed amputations on a rotting society without anesthesia, in an era when the world itself was collapsing into the abyss. Vlad III consciously chose the path of absolute, transcendent cruelty, not for sadistic pleasure, but to preserve the identity and the very physical survival of his people. Today, we are inclined to judge him from the heights of our comfortable modern humanism and civil rights, but to his subjects, he was the man who restored a forgotten pride and a lost security at the cost of his own soul. He became a monster to shield his people from even more terrifying beasts. Tepes burned in the very flames he ignited, leaving us with an eternal, agonizing question. Can one defend the good by using the methods of pure, concentrated evil? History offers no comforting answers. It does not justify, and it does not forgive. It only leaves indelible scars on the body of civilization, scars that bear the name of Dracula.